Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Eating at a Meeting. This is the final day of the show. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, the host of the Eating at a Meeting podcast and the owner of Meetings and Events. And this is my Katie Kulp, my new friend Katie Kulp, who happens to be a member of the Eating at a Meeting Facebook group, and told me she was going to be here. And so we got her selfie, which is great. But I got to know her this week and what she does. And it actually is quite appropriate for Disability Employment Awareness Month, because actually Katie's niche in planning meetings is for the disabilities community, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell everybody what you do.
So I'm a third-party planner, so I do logistics. I work with Conference Direct. I've been doing third-party planning for a little over a decade now, and probably about 5 years ago, I just kind of fell into this niche, as a lot of us event planners do, where I had a disability rights group that I worked with, and it's such a small community that, you know, if you do well for one, referral business, it keeps coming. So I end up getting more and more, and there are rights groups, self-advocacy groups, and even some groups that have nothing to do with disability rights. I have a performance group.
Okay.
But being able to accommodate everyone is huge for them, to the point where even when they went virtual, they hired a specialist to come in to make sure all their sites and everything were.
Wow.
So it's kind of paid off in other things, but it also has made me an advocate for exactly what you talk about, you know, on the podcast is making sure everyone feels included,
right,
when they're at their event or at their meeting, and they're not struggling or feeling different or anything like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I was just telling her a few minutes ago before we got here, I just met a woman who was born with half arms, right? And so I just went up to her and I was like, hey, can I ask you a couple questions? You know, because I wanted to know what her experience is with food and beverage and how she does that. And she taught me something new, a new question to ask, because she doesn't necessarily answer the questions that we put on registration forms because they don't pertain to her. Right. And it was, what was that we found? The reach. Let me see what it was. Reach restriction. And she found that from Little Caesars Pizza asks her that when she orders pizza, and she was blown away by that. But she can go into the Little Caesars Pizza and pick up the pizza without having to ask for help.
Right. And that's big. It's just having things that they may be able to accommodate themselves. I think one of the first things I learned when doing BEOs for the one group was everything on one tier. And a lot of hotels, they want to make it pretty, and there's tiers and shelves, and they have all this, especially right around this time, that started to become even more of a trend. So it's something that we have to put in our BEOs and our BEOs and kind of reiterate it in pre-cons and as you're walking the floor, is don't put things on levels, because people have reach restrictions. Right. Maybe they're in a wheelchair, maybe they have, or they're missing limbs, or just their body restricts them from being able to do so. Right. So it's, you know, simple things that you can do to accommodate people, and that just accommodates everybody. Right. You don't have to necessarily ask that question. Right. But at the same time, you know, finding the right way to ask the question and not being shy about asking the question is super important. Right. So, you know, we talked about it a little bit just now about asking, not necessarily, I'm not asking what your disability is. Just tell me how I can make it the most enjoyable and for you to get the most out of it that you can. Right. So, you know, and that getting specific too, because sometimes people don't answer, they answer in a way because they're so used to just people not digging into it or not feeling comfortable digging into it, that they'll just answer in the simplest way possible. Like, I only eat applesauce. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. Right. And it's a texture thing, or they had, you know, it's, they're not able to eat solid food, something to that effect. Well, I can give you more than applesauce. Like, exactly. You just need to tell me. Right. And have that dialogue and have it in a respectful way, but not be afraid to have the conversation. So.
Well, that just reminded me of somebody in our industry former senior sales manager for a major hotel company based in Vegas. And years ago, he had the gastric bypass surgery. And at one point, right, like after that surgery, he wasn't allowed to have solid food. He needed to have, applesauce and soft foods and things like that. He's like, but I'm never going to tell you. And I'm like, but if you're sitting at a dinner table for 10 people and you've got your 9 of your best clients with you and you're not eating, to me, I mean, I guess we have to be comfortable with that. But at the same time, people are going to question, why are you not eating when you're trying to sell me something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in trying not to stand out, you're standing out more.
Right. Exactly. And if you've seen my presentations, I show this slide of a walkway going out to a beach party, right? And how, and actually I should find a different picture, because it should be like, hey, I've built a ramp for the wheelchair user and everyone else walks out this way, right? But how do you need to design it for everyone so that it's not making that person stand out.
It is. It's that, or perhaps they're somebody who has problems with levels. So are they going to use the ramp, but maybe they also can't walk that far.
Right.
So that ramp doesn't do any good because now they're walking all the way around this way.
Right.
And it's too far for them. But they also couldn't do the boardwalk because of the levels. So,
right.
I mean, it's just kind of, don't assume you're doing the right thing.
Right.
And people go into it with the best intention.
Right.
You're not meaning any harm, but don't assume is
right.
always what it kind of comes down to.
And it does, like, thinking about this, it can be challenging. Yes. And figuring it out and one, making sure that you understand the needs, right? But then also figuring it out of how do you plan for it if they don't tell you or if they don't know, right?
Absolutely. And there's definitely things you can do just from an overarching every event lens. You just have to look at it when you do site visits, saying, like, okay, I don't have a problem with this, but could somebody potentially have a problem with this? But also to not overanalyze it. Like, you don't need to throw a bunch of money into things for an audience that doesn't really need it.
Okay.
Heart is always a good option. But if you don't have any deaf attendees who use sign language or need sign language, don't pay for an ASL interpreter.
Right.
I mean, that they're expensive, and if no one's actually benefiting from it, you're just wasting money, and is it just a visual thing, like optics? Right. So, have the cart, and that's great, because even people who are not hearing impaired or deaf, the cart, I know my
niece uses it. Yeah.
My kid watches everything. It used to drive me nuts. He puts out closed captioning on everything.
Yeah, my niece does. Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you do that? And then I started getting used to it. I'm like, actually, I kind of like it now. I don't miss as much. So, anyone can benefit from that. But it's just understanding really your audience and who it is, and asking the right questions in the right way. So in the registration systems that I design, I kind of teach it so you're using checkboxes so that you can kind of clear. So is it okay to say mobility, hearing, vision, and then and if they click one of those, ask deeper questions? Yeah, I think it's good to have the deeper questions, because hearing impaired is not the same as deaf. So the needs are different. So I think you do have to have that open-ended a little bit. You also have to be cognizant of how it reads and how it shows, because if you do have visually impaired, is their screen reader able to handle the checkboxes and that kind of, and drop downs? Drop downs are an issue for
visually impaired
or screen readers.
Oh wow,
That's something we learned in the virtual world when COVID hit. Is when you have drop down menus, it's hard for the screen reader to pick it up.
Okay.
So check boxes are usually okay, but the drop downs aren't. So but anywhere you can have open ended is also good, that they can fill in a little bit more details. Even if it's like you check one off and at the bottom it's not an open ended box for every single option. But at the bottom, tell me a little bit more about what you actually need to help accommodate you. Okay.
Instead of then also having having checkboxes, more checkboxes, just say I have an issue with hearing or seeing or whatever, and then allow them to say what they need.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. And address it that way. As how can I accommodate you? Not like, what are you? What is your disability?
Right.
how can I accommodate you to make sure it's
Okay.
enjoyable?
I like that. Yeah. Because then that gives them the ability to give what they need and want versus what we assume.
Right.
Right. Because we don't want to assume.
And you can even put down, because sometimes it is a little bit lengthier for them, put down if you have specific requests or you want to talk to somebody to make sure we understand, contact X person.
Such and such with an email address, a phone number.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Or like, is it okay if we contact you to go talk a little bit more about what your actual accommodations are?
That's great. And then, do people use TDD? And is it TDY anymore?
So yes, when they're in the phone and stuff, but there's so many apps and things now. Oh, that's so much built into the phone.
Right.
So, I have been online with someone who's that, but a lot of times Zoom is good for that too. I had a client that, because the closed captioning and lip reading, she could get by with.
Oh, wow.
That.
Okay.
So that's
Zoom
technology.
Is a lot more useful than we think it is. It is in so many ways.
It is. I mean, and that's good. It's good for like casual conversations and easy talks and stuff like that, for that auto gen part service that they have, closed captioning service. But when you're live in an event, particularly if you're in a specialty field that has like medical terms, people's names are hard, things like, we have native speakers come and open sessions. I mean, AutoGen's not going to know how to do that. So even virtually, it's really important when you're doing like full sessions to go that extra mile and get a live caption.
Gotcha.
To get it right. To really make sure you're including people.
Okay. So yesterday, Katie and I we went over to visit one of the hotels, Wynn Hotel, and they had this really cool, and I did do a video, I have to post it, of, what was it? Tiramisu?
It was a tiramisu. They called it chocolate caviar.
Right. Yeah. So it was chocolate, but it looked like caviar, and you bit into it. It was delicious. I couldn't eat it. She could, but Chef did a really fun video for me. But we were talking about dietary restrictions with that, and how do you manage that, and talking to the Wynn, they're going to hook me up with their culinary team to talk about how they manage it. But, Katie's, can I talk about him? Yeah. Okay. Katie's son is diabetic. And he's a preteen. 11. Yeah. So good luck.
Yeah.
And this came up last week too, or 2 weeks ago, I think it was, when I was talking to Lauren, and young professionals are hesitant. And I think a lot of people, even not young professionals, are hesitant to talk about their disabilities, whether it's food allergy or whatever. So we also need to create that environment where they feel comfortable sharing, because I think I've said this before, when you're hiring somebody, my friend Nora Burns, and I'll find the episode link for her, said an employer is not allowed to ask a question, hey, do you have any disabilities? It's against the law to do that. So it means that I have to, if I need or want accommodation in some sort of way, I actually have to speak up. Yeah. And then talk about how you're doing that with your son, because he's 11 and he's got diabetes.
Yeah. So he was just diagnosed in the summer. So he went into middle school this year. So he's balancing going into middle school, being 11, and now this new whole change in his world. And when he was home with us the last couple of weeks before school started, he was really great. His numbers were fantastic, because he was home and I was kind of helping him manage and learn that. But there's always a dip at 1 o'clock. There's always this dip in his blood sugar. And it was every single time. And to prevent that, just go have you have to have your snack. And he wasn't doing it anymore. And I was getting frustrated. So I did end up taking a beat and saying, okay, what is it that's stopping you? Like, is it like the timing of it? You're in the hall and you can't get to it. Like, what is it that's stopping? And he said, I just don't want to raise my hand and like alert the teacher and basically be different and show, that kind of thing. I said, yeah, but he's got the Dexcom. So this thing is the most obnoxious alarm when it goes off. And his nurse told him, to the nurse. And that we went to every teacher at the beginning of school and said, this is Chase, he's diabetic. And they said, great, if he needs a snack, just take it. You don't even have to ask, just do it. So it's trying to kind of break him out of the shy and take care of himself. So that 18-year-old kid in college who, crashes, goes back into DKA because he's not taking care of himself and not speaking up. So it's hard because he's 11, but I also need to teach him to be self-sufficient. So,
but I think that's important. And I love that you're doing that, because a bunch of food allergy parents need to learn how to do that too as their kids are getting older, because, being a helicopter mom is important, right? I mean, it helps in these kinds of situations. It's like a drum roll over there. But I think too, somebody in my old corporate job said meeting planners are everybody's mama, right? And so we are these moms, but we have to give our attendees the ability to speak up for themselves.
Yes, I love that. I never thought of it that way, but I feel like that's exactly what
because we feed them, we get them there. For the most part, we get them from spot to spot.
Yeah.
But we're feeding them, and we're making sure their agenda is all set. And so think of yourself as a mom, and how would you do attendees, right?
Yeah. How can I will do what I need to do to help you and to make sure it's the best experience as we possibly can make it. There's always going to be some kind of limitation, but I just need to know.
Well, and that reminds me of the story. A woman stood up and told the story that he was in his office and he told everybody he was going to lunch, and he's diabetic as well. And he went into his office, and this was in the north, so it was cold, to get his coat. And apparently he passed out because his blood sugar was so low, I think, before he went to lunch. And 2 hours later, somebody was asking for him and nobody could find him. He didn't come back for lunch. They knew he was going to lunch. Well, they opened the door and he was passed out in his office. And so you need to understand that. To me, I think it's really important, even for somebody who is diabetic, to let us know that you are. So in case that happens, but you know what to do. But I also think it's important to know that we shouldn't automatically give that person a Snickers bar because they may be having a sugar high versus the sugar low. So how do you know that?
So with the sugar low, the passing out is usually the sugar low.
Okay.
The sugar high tends to be more it's like throwing up. There's very similar symptoms.
Right.
If you're somewhere, they're likely not going into DKA that quickly.
Right.
Diabetic ketoacidosis. So if they're passing out,
the keto diet?
But not as fun. No.
Okay.
No, it's crazy. It's how a lot of type 1 diabetics are actually diagnosed. They go into DKA because they don't really know until you go just so high because all the ketones build up.
Okay.
Ketones are basically it's acid, it's toxins in your blood. So
and
in my son's case, and this is why keto is the thing, is it's what eats all the carbs. So when it doesn't have carbs to eat, it eats the fat. So my son, it looked like he dropped 15 pounds overnight. It was insane. I mean, it was probably over 2 or 3 days, but it was insane how much.
Wow. And he's 11, so that's not much.
No.
Yeah.
So DKA is a little bit different. It's more that it starts with the throwing up and that kind of. So the hypoglycemia is the lows, and that's typically where you're seeing people pass out.
Okay.
Or go into seizures or that kind of stuff. But to your point, don't give them a Snickers if they're passed out.
Right.
They can't eat it. So they have typically, and they'll probably have an emergency case for this if they're diabetic.
Right.
And you can see that they're passed out and they can't eat anything or they can't talk to you.
Right.
They have a glucagon, which is essentially like super powered, not insulin, but it like pumps it up so that it brings their blood sugar way up. So you can give that kind of like an EpiPen. And you just stick it in and you give them the shot and they come back up for a little bit and then obviously call 911.
Right.
To get them to the hospital.
Yeah.
But if you see them kind of acting a little bit, if they're dizzy or sitting down or not sure, or you may hear their alarm go off under the CCGNs, then you can provide the juice or the Snickers or the Skittles or what have you.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's really interesting. And I actually sent a sample registration form to somebody and to 2 lawyers actually to get their input. And they're like, because I suggest actually having an emergency action plan for people. And these 2 lawyers do a lot of work with kids. And so they know that a 504 plan is needed in the school and what's that emergency action plan. But to me as a meeting planner, if somebody's got, has epilepsy or has diabetes or has food allergies, I want to know that so that I have the right medical team there, because not every EMT is allowed to carry epinephrine. And so we need to make sure that that person is either carrying it or we've got it on site in case of an emergency. And just so you know, 36 states in the U.S. allow places of public accommodation like this convention center to actually stock epinephrine without a prescription. So they can actually administer it it's like a defibrillator, but it's EpiPens, right? So And they do have epinephrine on planes. Some of them, that's a whole other issue. We won't go in there. But to me as a meeting planner, I want to have that data.
Yeah. Well, and also knowing if I need to give you an epi shot or a glucagon shot.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
I mean, that's two very different drugs.
Oh, yeah,
so,
totally.
I mean, it is. It's very important to know that. And, they do have the medical alert. And actually, they've gotten really far with the technology. And so he's got a really cool looking one that's a band. And it goes online. It gives him a code. So when you look at it, it says, okay, look up this code. And I can put in all the information and instructions in there. So it's a lot more than just like, hey, I'm diabetic.
Right.
What does that mean?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So technology is always great. And if they have that,
right,
that's great, but not everyone does, and you don't know to look for it, or it's so stylish you don't know what it actually is.
Exactly. It could just be a fancy Apple Watch.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean, technology is definitely helping with that, but you still have to be able to self-advocate and put those kind of things out there.
Right.
If potentially there is something that could happen, it's very important. We can say to the paramedic or the 911, he's in anaphylactic shock, or he's in
exactly. And that helps with the people who do have those needs and they share it with us. There are a lot of people who've never known they've had an allergy and go into anaphylactic shock. But it reminds me of my friend, another planner out of Toronto, and Linda. And she told me about a guy who walked into an event and he smelled pineapple. And he's like, oh, I smell pineapple. And she's like, well, it's a Hawaiian themed party. And he's like, well, I'm allergic to pineapple. She's like, did you tell me that? He's like, no. She's like, do you carry epinephrine? Yes. Where is it? It's in my car. And she's like, well, where are the keys to your car? In my hotel room. Where's your, so she went through the steps with him. Like, where's your keys? Well, the key to my room is in my wallet. She's like, so I got to stick my hand in your back pocket, get your wallet out. And then I don't even know what room your number in. And then I don't know where your car looks like.
Your car is.
Right. Or where it is. And so you're probably going to be dead, by the time. So to me, I think it's really important to collect that information and make them accountable. Hey, do you carry an epinephrine pen, right? Or, how should we treat you in case of an emergency?
Right.
Yeah.
And that again, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the registration form. If you have something, if you see something like your allergy, yes, I have this allergy, is okay. Is there anything we should know about
about your
further steps, or can we contact you?
Right. Yeah. And who do we contact in case of an emergency, right?
Yeah.
Not just the EMTs, but like some guy told me a story years ago that his sister was in the hospital having some kind of reaction, and they kept giving her what she was allergic to because she couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anywhere on there, and there was no information about her in the registration because they could have just called and found out from somebody else that, hey, this is that. So, and somebody said the other day in one of the education sessions here, we've got so much on our plates already as meeting planners, but this is one extra step about that duty of care that we have.
Yeah, and it's hard because you also don't want to make it like, okay, here's 17 pages of a registration form where I'm trying to get every single detail I possibly can.
Right.
So it has to be within reason, but you still got to ask the question.
Right.
And
yeah.
They're not necessarily going to put it in if you don't. So.
Right. Yeah. And even if you make the question mandatory, you should say non-applicable, or I don't want to reply, I don't want to answer, which is something that they're doing when you're asking genders and stuff now and sex. And so, and that's their choice, right? That's their choice not to tell you. So we have to respect that at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we've covered that well. Yeah. So we've both been here at IMEX, which we're in the IAC booth, but we're at IMEX. And for the last, did you get here Monday? Sunday? Monday night. Okay. So you missed Smart Monday.
I did.
Yeah. So Smart Monday was on Monday with tons of education. I gave a session with my friend Mark from IAC on sustainability and the social aspect of sustainability. Oh, there's Mark Cooper right there. Come here. Hello. You're going to be on air, Mark.
Your ears were burning.
I love being on air today.
You do?
How are you?
Pop your head in here. How can you? You can? I'll move my chair. Maybe. There you go. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So we were just talking. This is Katie Mark.
Nice to meet you.
So now I want to talk about IMEX. How was IMEX for you this week?
IMEX for us this week has been phenomenal because it just feels like 2019.
Oh, really?
So,
That's awesome.
IMEX for me, we were just having this conversation actually. We were talking about the fact that I've been coming for 10 years to IMEX.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that it feels like, or the one thing that's been obvious this week is we're not talking about the road to recovery. All of that's gone away. We're just doing business. So it's like, we're here to do business.
Mm-hmm.
Business is coming. And everyone that I've talked to has just had a refreshing week in terms of handling events that people are committed to running.
That's
with
awesome.
no question marks or ifs or maybes. So, yeah, we're really excited that it feels like we're back.
Yeah, and how are your appointments?
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, everything, you're right. Like, I was talking to someone about, I can't remember what word it was, but I was like, boy, that word brings up pivot. And I was like, when was the last time you said pivot? Because
Right.
God, that's all you said in 2020 was pivot.
Right, yeah.
So, but there isn't that talk
On
of,
there, right?
it is. There's the COVID talk is just not here. It's,
Right.
It's very open. It's very much, we're here, we're doing this, we're
Right.
doing great things. And yeah.
The numbers
Business
speak for
as usual.
themselves this week.
Right,
Like
yeah.
11,000, is it? Or 13,000?
We'll find out at 2:30 when the
Okay.
final press conference.
Okay, well,
yeah.
there's lots of speculation going on.
Right. Yeah.
We're as busy on day 3 as we were on day 1 and day 2 in terms of
Yeah.
poke around. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
refreshing.
it's like there's 3,300 exhibitors, and I know there was upwards of 4,000 meeting planners. But if you think the exhibitors, how many people were in each one of those booths? Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, and we're actually on the side. This is the back aisle of the show floor, and it's amazingly quiet. When you walk 10 feet this way or 20 feet that way, it's like buzzing. Yeah. It's completely
But
different
it's-
experience.
We're going to milk this one until 5:30 today. And
Is
maybe
that
a
where
little bit
we're
longer.
open till 5:30?
Apparently we are.
Oh,
We
okay.
go.
All right, I didn't know that. Well, that gives me some more time to walk around. So my next question is about our session the other day. So Mark and I did a session on looking at venues through a sustainable lens, or no, a social lens, sorry, for
But
sustainability
that was
wise.
part of it, right?
Right, it was
Big
about
part of
that.
it.
One of the questions you and I were both surprised by when we asked the audience was how many of you are incorporating sustainability questions into your request for proposals, into your meeting planning, and how many people answered out of the room of 50?
3.
3 people. So
Yeah.
people start doing this.
And Don Walsh at Destinations International asked a very similar question
Mhm.
to a group of 60 he had on Monday, and 4 people to that. So this is the reality, I'm
Yeah.
afraid, the sad reality.
Yeah, but-
Action and talk.
Yeah, we need to stop just talking about it. We need to start acting.
We do.
Yeah.
We talk a good story, but that's dangerous.
Right. It is dangerous because I was looking up a statistic today for Sarah, and oh my gosh, it's actually probably right. The economic impact of our meetings industry, where this is from 2018, business events generated more than $1.07 trillion of direct spending and drew 1.5 billion participants globally in 2017. I mean, that's mind-boggling.
Yes, it is.
And if we're back, and that's 2017, so 2019 was a big year for us, the industry. So add on to that, and now people are saying we're back to 2019 levels. We need to be making change because that many people traveling and for business, we need to make some sustainability practices.
We don't want to be labelled as the tobacco companies were in the 80s.
Mhm.
This industry, the business events industry, travel industry, we have a responsibility to protect the long-term health of the viability of meeting face to face. And so we absolutely do have to act. It's critical.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Well, thank you for popping
My
in.
pleasure.
You're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure to join you both.
Thank you. Okay, so anything that you found fun in this, or any eye-opening things from this week?
So I've actually talked to a lot of technology groups, and just seeing some of the things that they're doing out there, that they are starting to bring in the inclusive piece of it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is great because it wasn't there before COVID hit.
Right.
They were left out of a lot of things. So it is great to kind of see and talk to them. And open. There's one thing I will say to about every person I think I've spoken to here is everybody is open to like ideas in the conversation.
That's awesome.
It's just, let me talk to you about this. Okay, yeah, let me sit down. I had the CEO of one of the companies go, come here, let's go sit down and talk about this a little bit more about what we can do, how we can help. And it's amazing. I love that. I love that people are open to this, and it's not still this is the way we've always done it mentality.
Right.
And I think that's something across the board, not just in our industry, but in who like our clients' industries is, and I've even told them this, I'm like, use COVID as an excuse to not do what you've always done.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Because this is your chance to go to the board and say, I know this is what we've always done, but COVID, we got to change.
Right.
So, and it may have nothing to do with COVID, but it's that, but you guys, COVID, I mean.
Right. Yeah. So, it wreaked havoc on it.
It did. So it's, if there's going to be a silver lining,
right.
That's one of them is, okay, we're going to use this as a change platform. And one of the things I've been just going through the EIC's sustainability course. One of the things I think people don't think about when they're thinking sustainability, they're like, it's all or nothing.
Right.
But it's not.
Oh, it's not. No.
You can do incremental steps, and you can kind of ease your board into it or ease your attendees into it in different ways and and then get there, because every little bit you do is going to help. It's
right. Exactly.
What you were doing.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's important to,
That's a really good point. And you could start with food and beverage, right? You can track your numbers, reduce your food waste, make sure that you're donating any leftovers to to a local charity. I mean, that's one step.
Yep.
And like you said, and making sure you're using reusable silverware and things like that instead of adding to the composting, pile in the back, right?
Yep.
All right, I want to go back to that tech question real quick because I want to ask something for Samantha Evans, who has no idea I'm asking this on her behalf, but one of the challenges, because you're in the disabilities marketplace, you do a lot of that, is that there's a lot of people that just put this screen over their website and not over their website. Well, it's kind of over their website and saying, hey, this is making my website accessible, but it's really not.
It's not.
And did you find the tech companies willing to change their platform so that it actually is accessible without using one of those things?
Yeah, so there are a lot of them that have already actually been in that, and there's a few of them that said we've actually hired accessibility coordinators or somebody in that position or brought on a contractor to help us develop that. I mean, it is a lot, unfortunately, and this is where they get tied up, is it's expensive. It's hard to kind of back end it after it's already built and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not, okay, let me slap this on it. Now the screen reader can read it. Or now it's in a way that it's not as simple as like, okay, I zoomed in and now it's large print. So there's other things involved. You got to be careful with cognitive disabilities or visual, not just visual, like screen reader, but like seizures and flash and all that. So there's a lot more things that go into it. And there are people who are specialized to go in and do that. And it's a lot. It's extensive because we've had to do it before we hired them for a virtual event because it was on so many platforms weren't there yet. So we had this person come in and it was a lot. It was, hours and hours that she went through all these changes, things as simple as alt text.
Right.
And it's something that you can think of and I'm trying to do better at this in my personal is on social media, hashtags.
Yes.
Capital letters.
Yes. And I'm going to do one of those real quick.
Well, so just in case you're not sure what I'm talking about, if screen readers need the second capital letter between words. So hashtags, it automatically wants to do everything lowercase, but you need to capitalize the start of each new word so that the screen reader can actually read it. So that's something I'm trying to do better.
Just like that.
Yes, exactly. And including alt text, LinkedIn now, different platforms now are allowing you to add alt text.
Yes.
The descriptives of what's in the picture.
And I was taught from one of my web people, and this is like 10 years ago, well, no, use that to increase your SEO. Well, you can do that, yes, but in the context of increase your SEO by actually describing the picture, not just putting in, hey, this is eating at a meeting, saying, hey, these two women are sitting next to each other in this image. One on the right is in a burgundy top with a silver necklace, and the other one is in a what is that color? Beige, peach tank top, right? Style dress in front of a sign that says IAC on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Using that descriptive.
Exactly. And actually making it a visual descriptive.
Right. Exactly.
So, I'm working with a group that right now we're trying to figure out, when you have closed captioning channels and closed language channels, can we also do a closed visual descriptive channel?
Oh, wow.
So it's exactly that. It's more descriptive. And again, this is like an arts group, a performance group. So it's a little bit more specialized in describing the motion and stuff.
Right.
You have a dancer or
Right.
who's playing what, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it is things that it feels awkward and you're thinking you're overdoing it. And trust me, I am definitely one to overdo talking. Not been known for my brevity, but the more descriptive you can be, the better. Right. And even for my website, I use Wix, and that's how they describe it, is put the description so that Google's SEO knows what this is. I'm like, well, that you're trying to say alt text, and that's for that. So it took me a minute to figure out that's what it was trying to say. I was like, okay, but maybe also say that it's for that as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you definitely want people, you want everyone to be able to experience the video or the image that's on your screen that you're using to describe your event to entice them to come, right? Yeah. Or the speaker, right? Or something like that, And so when I do my social media posts, I'm like, in my picture, and like even on Instagram, you pop it up and you describe that image of what's on there. And you need to go look up the conversation on the Milky Way, but the alt text on those images that the National Space Center, whatever, are phenomenal. So just go look up those photos and look at the alt text and see that, because they wanted the people who were visually impaired to actually understand what the Milky Way looks like. I think,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it helps to actually show that you're not just doing lip service to it.
Right.
You're walking the walk, and someone, if they're trying to decide on an event to go to, particularly if you're like trying to draw people to it, is okay. The fact that they took the time and made sure that this website was accessible also speaks to me, saying, what else are they going to do to help me be inclusive? Right.
Exactly. So. Yeah. And don't make it lip service, because you're asking the questions, whether it's food allergies, whether it's any other kind of accommodation. If you ask the question, you better damn well follow up on it, because
you look worse if you don't.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, I think we've done well.
I think so. I hope so.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And this is Katie Kulp. She works for Conference Direct. She's an independent third-party event planner. So if you need an event plan, call her. And actually, here is her LinkedIn profile right there. You can find her. And she is a member of the Eating at a Meeting Facebook group. And that's how we met. And so join that. It's free to join. And we talk about food and beverage all the time. Accessibility, safe, sustainable, and inclusive. So if you were listening, thank you so much. Stay safe and eat well. And I will see you next Wednesday. I'm taking 5 days off. I'll see you next Wednesday. Exactly. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.